What is life? I mean, for centuries, we've been taught to look for the answer in chemistry, right? Some kind of miracle mix of molecules. But what if we've been looking in completely the wrong place? There's this radical new way of thinking that says life isn't about what it's made of, but about what it does. That at its core, life is a kind of computation.
Okay, to really get our heads around this huge shift in thinking, let's kick things off with a little thought experiment. Just imagine an alien. Let's say it's a hardware engineer, lands on Earth. And its one big mission is to figure out this thing we call computation.
So where do you think this alien would even start? Well, being a hardware engineer, its first instinct is to look at the materials we use. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Depending on when it shows up in our history, its conclusions are going to be, well, completely different.
Yeah, think about it. If it lands in 1804, it looks at a jacquard loom and goes, aha, computation must be made of wood and silk. Fast forward to the 1940s, and suddenly the secret seems to be glass and tungsten, inside those old vacuum tubes. And if it lands today, well, obviously it's got to be silicon. Now, each of these answers is kind of right for its time, but all of them completely miss the real point.
Because the alien would be dead wrong. See, computation isn't about silicon or tungsten or wood. It's not a thing. It's a process. It's about logic, the procedure, the algorithm itself, not the physical stuff it happens to be running on. Which brings us to the big, crucial question, are we making that exact same mistake when we go looking for life?
And that question brings us right to the heart of the matter, our own long-standing obsession with the specific chemistry of life as we know it, right here on Earth.
And this slide just lays out that parallel perfectly. For years, our search for life has really been a search for amino acids, for DNA, for proteins. We have been acting exactly like that alien engineer, totally convinced that life has to be a property of these specific carbon-based materials, the same way the alien was sure computation had to be a property of silicon.
And this whole chemical obsession was pretty much cemented back in 1952 with that legendary Miller-Urey experiment. I'm sure you've heard of it. They managed to create amino acids, the building blocks of life, from simple inorganic compounds. And for generations after that, that's what the search for life's origins was all about, finding that one rare, specific chemical recipe that made all of this possible.
But now a massive paradigm shift is happening. The thinking is, maybe we should stop focusing so much on life's ingredients and start focusing on its behavior, on what life actually does.
And the key concept here is something called adaptive function. It's a whole new way to define life, not by its chemistry, but by its ability to change, to evolve, to adapt. Or, to put it another way, its ability to solve problems. I mean, just think about it for a second. Insect wings, they solve the problem of flight. Kidneys, they solve the problem of filtering your blood. When you look at it this way, evolution itself is just this giant, ongoing, biological problem-solving machine.
And this idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually has some really deep intellectual roots. You can trace it all the way back to Aristotle, who is already talking about function being more important than form. Then you've got Darwin, who basically framed adaptation as problem-solving, and it all connects to the modern era with the one and only Alan Turing, who is the one to link function directly to this abstract idea of computation.
Yeah. Life is starting to look a lot less like an outcome of chemistry and physics and more like a computational process. Wow, that one sentence just reframes everything, doesn't it? Because if life really is a computational process, then we can start searching for it based on the principles of information, not chemistry. That frees us up completely from being stuck on just Earth's specific recipe. So this whole new perspective has kicked off some really fascinating new theories about what life could actually be. There are three big ones we're going to look at. Let's call them the Tron, the Golem, and the Maupertuis hypotheses.
All right, first up is the Tron hypothesis. And yes, it's named after that classic sci-fi movie. The core idea here is that if life is truly all about information, then we should be able to simulate it entirely in software. No carbon, no water, no earthly chemistry needed. It's really a search for life as it could be, not just the life as we know it we see around us.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. Take a look at this. This is a program called Avita. Those little colored pixels you're looking at, those are digital organisms. They are literally self-replicating computer programs that live, compete, and evolve inside a computer's memory. They have to solve problems to survive in their digital world. It's the Tron hypothesis in action, right there on the screen.
Okay, next up we have the Golem hypothesis. Now, if Tron is all about the software, Golem is all about the hardware. The idea here is that we could, theoretically, build synthetic life from totally new materials, using a chemistry that has nothing to do with our own. This theory really emphasizes that the information of life has to be tied to a physical metabolism and energy.
So that raises a pretty big question. How would you even recognize life like that if you found it? Well, a really interesting idea called assembly theory might be the tool we need. The basic concept is pretty simple. Things built by life are way more complex and take more steps to assemble than things formed by just random chance. So we could measure this complexity, give it an assembly number. And if we find molecules on Mars or somewhere with a super high assembly number, that would be a huge clue that some kind of problem-solving process, like life, was behind it, no matter what it's made of.
And that brings us to our third and, honestly, most radical idea, the Maupertuis hypothesis. This one suggests that life isn't some crazy cosmic accident at all. Instead, it's an inevitable outcome of the laws of physics. In this view, life is just a process the universe itself came up with to solve a fundamental problem, like finding a faster, more efficient way to spread out energy and reach a state of thermodynamic balance.
Now, this hypothesis is built on some pretty deep principles from physics. Let's break it down. First, you have the principle of least action. Basically, nature is lazy. It always finds the most efficient path. Then you have the free energy principle, which says living systems are always trying to minimize surprise, to predict their environment so they can survive. And this leads to this wild new way of defining an individual, not by its biology or its body, but by its ability to pass adaptive problem-solving information through time. And this little package of information, some people are calling it a Maupertuis particle.
Okay, so let's zoom out. What does all of this mean for the universe itself? It really suggests that there was this incredible moment, a threshold, where something completely, fundamentally changed.
There's actually a fantastic analogy from the history of computers that explains this perfectly. Think of the early non-living universe as being like a Babbage difference engine. It's a brilliant machine, but it can only follow fixed, unchangeable physical laws. It just calculates. But when life emerged, the universe became something more like a Turing analytical engine. It became a machine that could be programmed, one that could adapt its own rules to solve totally new and unique problems. And that is the fundamental point. The revolution that started life wasn't about matter. It was about logic. It was the moment the universe switched from just blindly obeying fixed laws to, in a sense, learning how to program itself. And so, all of this leaves us with one final, absolutely mind-bending question. If life really is a form of computation, a kind of problem-solving matter that might just be all over the cosmos, then what is the fundamental problem that the universe itself is trying to solve?